Now looking back on it, living with my mother, the web of lies just ran so deep. I think that she just spun it so big that she was enveloped within it and couldn't escape. After I went to prison, after the murder, everything came out about everything that my mother was telling people. A lot of this information came to me by either Mike, my attorney, or Christy, my stepmom. And then it got back to me. Mike had told me about what my mother was telling people about my father or about our family, our relatives. It was a lot to absorb. My two attorneys are telling me that my mother has something called Munchausen by proxy, and she was using me for money and abusing me medically, and then to tell me all of the lies and manipulation on top of it. So I felt, did I ever know her at all? My own mother? Did I ever know this woman at all? We landed on the rooftop of St. John's Hospital, and I just remember thinking, okay, we're at a hospital. This is normal. You know?
Both of them exuded just wild enthusiasm and gratefulness. Gypsy's demeanor didn't strike me as potentially unusual simply because I knew ahead of time that she had what was described as a developmental delay. I'm used to seeing parents being really resilient. Dee Dee was no different. The interactions between Dee Dee and Gypsy were one that were not atypical of a mother and a child with developmental delay and a lot of medical problems. It was one of fun interaction. Physically, there was some hugging and hand-holding and those type of things. Nothing unusual.
Before the appointment, she's like, now whenever it comes to the reflex test, make sure you keep your legs super still. And she would put her arm around me and hug my shoulder, or she would squeeze my hand. That was the signal to shut up.
The way that Gypsy acted, wearing princess dresses, the way she talked, the things that she referenced that she liked to do, were like a kindergartner.
When my mother and I moved to Missouri, I would have been 14 years old, and she was telling me that I was 12 years old.
Dee Dee was pretty clear that Gypsy had a history of cancer, asthma, some sort of muscular disorder.
My mother would often tell other people and tell me that I would only have a life expectancy of 7, and then it was 15, and then it was 20. I think to some degree I knew it was a facade. However, I didn't know the malicious intent behind the facade.
Dee Dee didn't have the medical records. She said they're gone because it was chaos down in New Orleans right after Katrina. So Dee Dee became the sole place for information. Probably the biggest concern I had was just this history of cancer. Dee Dee could not give either the diagnosis nor really the length of treatment that she had been on. That was unusual. And to me, that was a red flag. So the question is, at what point do you trust the parent to be accurate with the information? Can I trust what Dee Dee's telling me?
My understanding that your client's going to plead guilty to the Class A felony of murder in the 2nd degree, and with a plea agreement that she's to be sentenced to 10 years in the Missouri Department of Corrections.
Today we entered a plea in Miss Blanchard's case. In July of 2016, Gypsy pled guilty to 2nd-degree murder.
Be the judgment and sentence of the court that you be sentenced to 10 years in the Missouri Department of Corrections. Probation will be denied.
In Gypsy's case, She was given a 10-year sentence, which requires her to serve at least 8.5 years before she's eligible for parole. The parole board in Gypsy's case will also be wanting to hear from Gypsy herself, from any family members.
My family in general, there's a lot of guilt on both sides. There's still certain people that are just so overwhelmed with emotion that they really just don't know what to say to me at this point.
I think I first started to learn that drugs were available in prison when I started seeing other women get high. I tried Suboxone and it gave me the same high as taking pain pills. And instantly I was brought back to the addiction that I had to pain pills back when I was living with my mother. And then one day, one of the women that I owed $50 to for a bunch of pills, she was pressuring me to get paid. And so I called Christy and I told her that I accidentally broke this girl's CD player and if she could please send $50.
We're the type of people, if you're borrowing something from somebody and it breaks, you got to pay for it. I said, okay. I said, I'll send it.
It had been eating at me for years that I lied to Christy. I hated myself and I hated what I became. So I decided to tell Christy.
When Gypsy told me, I was upset, but she told me the truth. And that's, to me, at the end of the day, that's what mattered.
I was really happy that I can tell Christy anything. And I'm clean, I'm sober, and I'm not that person anymore. Nobody knows that I even had a addiction before prison, let alone in prison.
Hopefully, she stays on the straight and narrow. And as far as Gypsy learning the lies and manipulations from her mom, I've noticed that she's learning to not repeat that pattern.
We were bonded by this lie together, like we couldn't escape each other. I got mixed up with the wrong crowd. And this particular crowd was into some bad things.
Yeah.
And they had influenced me to get into some bad things.
Mm-hmm.
And she just told me she forgave me. And I think that's really when I started to realize the love of a parent.
We all make mistakes. You have to trust your parents that you can tell them anything and know that, you know, they love you unconditionally and it's okay. Yeah, you've grown so much. It's glad that you can realize that too, you know.
She didn't tell me what it was, but I love talking to her on the phone, and I think that's what we need. We still have a long way to, you know, we just need to spend some time together.
Okay, love you, baby. Talk to you later.
Love you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for calling. Bye.
Even though I wasn't having in-person visits with my father, we would still occasionally talk on the phone. But my mother was right beside me, telling me exactly what to tell him.
When I'd talk to her, she would say, I'm a little tired or something. But she just seemed like a normal kid, apart from having to be helped in and out of the wheelchair. She seemed like a trooper. She was happy. She never complained about any of it.
Not seeing my father for 6 years didn't have hardly any effect on me or my emotional state because I wasn't allowed to have a relationship with my father. My mother used to talk about my father in such negative light, so it wasn't like I missed him in any way because my mother had manipulated me to think that he didn't love me or want to be a part of my life.